Winter, 1943. Somewhere on the edge of an American town, the night slips through every crack of a wooden house. A man wakes before dawn, not because of noise, but because of cold. The kind that settles quietly, presses against the chest, and makes breathing feel heavier than it should. The stove is dark. Fuel is saved for later. Outside, the wind moves unchecked. He reaches for something without thinking, something folded, rough to the touch, smelling faintly of storage and smoke. He wraps it around his shoulders, then his legs, then, without ceremony, he covers a small child sleeping beside him. There is no sense of protection here, no confidence, only habit. This object does not block the cold, it does not defeat it, it only slows it down, just enough for the night to pass. The man does not know this action will matter. He is not thinking about survival or systems or war. He is only trying to make the next hour tolerable. Outside, factories will soon wake, trains will move, history will accelerate. But in this quiet room, survival begins with something heavy, plain, and utterly forgettable, doing more than anyone expects of it.
When daylight arrives, the object looks almost embarrassing. It is not soft, not light, not pleasant to touch. The fibers are coarse, uneven, sometimes itchy. The color is dull, gray, olive, brown, chosen not to comfort, but to disappear. It folds poorly, holds smells, absorbs moisture. When wet, it becomes heavier than anyone expects. No one would call it elegant. No one would choose it if there were better options. It is, quite frankly, ugly. And yet, in 1943, this was one of the most trusted things a family could own. Not because it promised warmth, but because it delivered it without asking for anything in return. No electricity, no fuel, no moving parts, just weight, density, and stubborn material that refused to let heat escape quickly. People complained about it. Soldiers cursed it. Children scratched at it. But they kept it close, because it worked when nothing else did. It could be thrown over a bed, nailed across a window, wrapped around a body, laid on the floor to block cold rising from the ground. It could become a curtain, a coat, a barrier. It did not solve the cold, it slowed it. And in a winter shaped by rationing, blackouts, and fragile infrastructure, slowing the cold was enough. This was not a comfort object. It was not designed to feel good. It was designed to endure abuse, moisture, dirt, neglect, and still function the next night. In a world obsessed with improvement, this thing survived by refusing to change. By the winter of 1943, the United States was winning battles overseas, but losing comfort at home. Coal was redirected to factories. Oil was prioritized for transport and war production. Electricity was unstable in many areas, especially during storms and peak demand. Heating a home was no longer a given, it was a calculation. Coal did not arrive as a single disaster, it arrived every night. Homes were poorly insulated, windows leaked air, central heating was rare outside cities, and the standard solution, burning more fuel, was no longer acceptable. Fuel was rationed, money was tight, infrastructure could not be rebuilt during a war. The problem was painfully simple to describe. How do you keep people warm through winter without fuel, without electricity, and without the materials to rebuild homes? And the answer was almost impossible. You could not redesign millions of houses. You could not give everyone more coal. You could not stop winter from coming. Layering clothing helped, but restricted movement. Staying in one room conserved heat, but destroyed daily routines. Fireplaces warmed air unevenly and wasted most of their energy up the chimney. Every solution created a new problem.
Cold was not just uncomfortable, it weakened immune systems, it slowed workers, it turned small illnesses into serious threats. In a country dependent on continuous labor, cold became a national risk. The government could regulate fuel, it could issue guidelines, it could ask for sacrifice, but it could not manufacture warmth. Warmth had to be preserved, not produced, and that reframed the problem entirely. The question was no longer how to generate more heat, but how to stop the little heat people had from disappearing. That shift in thinking opened the door for solutions that looked unimpressive, passive, and almost accidental. Solutions that did not fight winter, they simply refused to let it win quickly.
This object did not create warmth. That is the mistake people often make when talking about it. It did something far more important. It slowed loss. Wool, in its roughest form, traps air, not in neat layers, not by design, but by accident. Thousands of irregular fibers create pockets that refuse to let heat move quickly. Warmth does not escape all at once. It leaks slowly. That slowness is the mechanism. Modern solutions try to overpower cold. Heaters generate more energy. Insulation adds layers, foams, chemicals. They look advanced, and they demand resources. This did not. It removed complexity. No power source, no installation, no calibration, just mass and material. Compared to better blankets, it felt worse. Softer fabrics compressed too easily. Thin textiles lost heat fast. Synthetic materials, where available, degraded, burned, or failed under moisture. This coarse wool accepted everything: damp air, sweat, dirt, neglect. Even wet, it retained structure. Even abused, it continued to slow heat loss. What was removed to gain this reliability? Comfort, lightness, beauty. You could not regulate it. You could not fine-tune it. You could only place it and trust physics to do the rest. That was the trade. In 1943, when systems failed and energy was rationed, control was an illusion anyway. What mattered was predictability. This object did not adapt to the user adapted to it. By doing less, it did exactly what was required, and nothing more.
No one wrote letters praising it. There were no newspaper headlines, no government posters, no speeches. Its success was invisible. People did not notice the nights they did not wake up shivering. They did not count the mornings when fingers could still move, when breath did not ache, when illness did not arrive. They simply carried on. Factories opened on time. Children went to school. Elderly people survived winters that might otherwise have ended differently. That was the effect. By reducing nightly stress on the body, it reduced everything that followed: sickness, exhaustion, mistakes. In wartime, that quiet reduction mattered more than dramatic solutions. There was also a psychological shift. Covering windows with it made homes darker, but safer. Wrapping it around shoulders created a sense of boundary. Laying it across a bed marked a private space in overcrowded houses. It absorbed sound. It softened echoes. It made rooms feel smaller and therefore warmer. People slept better not because they were comfortable, but because the environment felt contained. In a world of blackouts and uncertainty, that mattered. This object became part of daily ritual, folded in the morning, hung to dry, laid out again at night. No instructions, no ceremony, just repetition. And repetition builds stability. Years later, few remembered why they owned it. It became just another household item, stripped of its wartime meaning. That forgetting was its final achievement. Because the best survival tools do not announce themselves. They disappear into routine and quietly keep people alive. After the war, the world changed its priorities. Homes were rebuilt. Energy became cheap again. Central heating spread quickly, promising control at the turn of a dial. Warmth was no longer something to be protected, it was something to be produced on demand. And this object no longer fit the story. It was heavy, it looked old, it reminded people of scarcity. New materials arrived, lighter fabrics, softer textures, synthetic fibers that felt modern and optimistic. Advertisements celebrated comfort, cleanliness, color. Compared to them, this thing felt like a relic. It moved from beds to closets, from daily use to emergency storage, from necessity to inconvenience. Eventually, it disappeared from most homes altogether, not because it failed, but because success made it unnecessary. Modern heating systems solved the problem it was built for, but they introduced a new dependency: energy supply. When power was constant, the trade seemed fair. The logic shifted. Why endure weight and roughness when warmth could be effortless? Yet the qualities that once made this object indispensable never vanished. It still worked without electricity, still slowed heat loss without permission, still tolerated neglect. It simply waited, stored in basements, folded in attics, kept in vehicles just in case. Its disappearance was not an evolution, it was a preference. Society chose comfort over resilience. And for decades, that choice seemed correct, until systems failed again.
Today, this object is rarely discussed. It does not appear in museums of innovation. It is not framed as a breakthrough. No one calls it smart. And yet, when power grids fail, when storms isolate communities, when heating systems stop working, it quietly returns. Pulled from storage, unfolded without ceremony, trusted without explanation. Its lesson is uncomfortable. Progress did not make it obsolete. Comfort made it forgettable. It represents a kind of thinking that modern systems avoid, designing for failure rather than success, assuming resources will disappear, assuming conditions will worsen, assuming help will not arrive quickly. This object was built for that world, not to win, but to endure. It does not ask for optimization. It does not demand upgrades. It offers no settings, no feedback, no promises. It simply works, slowly, predictably, without drama. In a culture obsessed with efficiency and visibility, that kind of reliability feels dull. But in moments of collapse, dull becomes invaluable. The real legacy of this object is not historical, it is philosophical. It reminds us that survival often depends less on innovation and more on restraint, on removing points of failure, on accepting discomfort, on choosing what lasts over what feels good. When systems are strong, such tools seem unnecessary. When systems break, they become essential again. Folded, heavy, plain, waiting.